well, right? But they are selling a product which is being used by customers all around the world, right? So this is what we mean by globalization. আগে অনেক কোম্পানি হিস্টোরিক্যালি ডিস্টিংক্ট এবং সেপারেট ন্যাশনাল মার্কেটস এর জন্য শুধু প্রোডাক্ট বানাতো। You're making a product only for the American market or the British market or the Brazilian market or the German market or the Indian market. Things used to be like that, but nowadays, as the world is becoming more and more and more globalized, these sort of boundaries or this sort of geographic lines, যে এই প্রোডাক্টটা শুধু আমেরিকান বা এই প্রোডাক্টটা শুধু ব্রাজিলিয়ান বা এই প্রোডাক্টটা শুধু অস্ট্রেলিয়ানদের জন্য, এইরকম আর নাই। More and more export import trade, more and more opening up of the borders around the world has led to cross border trade at a much greater volume than it used to be, let's say even 30 years ago, right? So এই জিনিসটাকে বলা হয় globalization. Many of you want to work in multinational companies, right? Many of you want to work for
Yes, sir.
Grameenphone,
Yes, sir.
or Unilever, or Standard Chartered Bank, or British American Tobacco, Nestle, the list goes on and on and on. This has been possible because of the globalization of markets as well. এই কোম্পানিগুলি কি করে? They're all operating in Bangladesh, but are any of them Bangladesh? They have massive operations. যে কটার নাম বললাম, they all have massive operations in Bangladesh, but are any of them Bangladeshi companies?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Right? But they have huge business in Bangladesh. So this has been possible because of the emergence of global brands. For example, Nescafe or Coke or McDonald's, Burger King, Lux, Head and Shoulders, Pantene, are any of these brands now considered to be only from the country they're from, or are they global brands?
Global, sir.
Global brands, sir.
Global brands.
Definitely, they're all global brands, right? So that is what we refer to. যখনই একটা আইফোন আমেরিকাতে নতুন আসে, within 2 weeks you get it in Bangladesh, right? Within 2 to 3 weeks. Do you think this was always like this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Obviously not, right? প্রথমে যখন মোবাইল ফোন আসে তার অনেক বছর পরে কিন্তু মোবাইল টেকনোলজি বাংলাদেশ আসে, right? But nowadays, because of the improvement in technology, because of the improvement in transportation, you're able to get the same products around the world very fast. Whenever there is a new PlayStation out or whenever there is a new phone out, you're able to get it very fast, right? So that is what ultimately led to the emergence of global brands. You can find Burger King in Bangladesh, you can find Burger King in Brazil, you can find Burger King in Argentina, you can find Burger King in UK and Thailand and New Zealand and everywhere else in the world, right? Because it is not something which is considered. For example, in the food industry, we are seeing a massive change. Every year, new franchises are entering Bangladesh, right? Have you seen this? যে প্রত্যেক
Yes,
বছরই
sir.
কোনো না কোনো কফি চেইন বা ফাস্ট ফুড চেইন বাংলাদেশে আসছে কন্টিনিউয়াসলি ever since Pizza Hut and KFC came to Bangladesh, right?
Yes,
Pizza Hut,
sir.
KFC
Yes, sir.
আসলো, তারপরে AMW আসলো. To any of you remember AMW? Generation Z students, do you know what AMW is?
Yes, sir. That means
Yeah. So এমনও হয় যে অনেক কোম্পানির লোকাল পপুলারিটির চেয়ে অন্যান্য দেশে তারা বেশি পপুলার, because again this is the result of globalization. For example, Standard Chartered Bank, you will barely see where. Do any of you know where Standard Chartered Bank is from? Which country?
Sir, England.
It is from the UK, right? Standard Chartered Bank is from the UK, but in the UK you'll barely see any Standard Chartered branches anywhere, right? In my time as I was studying for my masters, I didn't see a single Standard Chartered branch in Scotland. I used to live in Glasgow, Scotland, right? So সেখানে একটা Standard Chartered ব্যাংকের ব্রাঞ্চও নাই. When I went to London and other cities, I visited Manchester, I visited Liverpool, I visited Leeds, I visited London multiple times. সেই সব জায়গার মধ্যে একবার শুধু লন্ডনে একটা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড চার্টার্ড ব্রাঞ্চ দেখি আমি. I haven't seen a Standard Chartered bank in Leeds or Liverpool or Manchester or in Edinburgh as well in Scotland. এই যে কয়টা সিটিতে আমি যাই কোথাও কোনো Standard Chartered branch দেখি নাই. I have visited those cities quite comprehensively. Not a single Standard Chartered branch anywhere. In London, I only saw one branch. Right? So, in Bangladesh, on the other hand, you see Standard Chartered in Dhaka city in many areas, and it is the most popular foreign multinational bank in this country. So what does this show? What are the banking giants in the UK? It's Lloyds, it's NatWest, right? These are, it's Barclays, Premier League. Really, if you know that the Premier League used to be sponsored by Barclays Bank. Those of you who follow football, right? So for Standard Chartered Bank, their main market is in the Asia Pacific region. It's not even their home market where they're more popular or where they're in more demand, because there are much bigger companies dominating the banking industry of the UK, such as the Lloyds, NatWest, Barclays, equally company, British banking industry can dominate. Where you barely see the presence of Standard Chartered, whereas this company is immensely popular in India, Pakistan, Singapore, in this entire Asia Pacific region. You will see a big dominance, a very strong presence of Standard Chartered Bank because of the fact that they have been operating in this region for a very long time. And at the same time, ekhane, compared to the local banks, Standard Chartered has built its presence for a much longer time. So naturally, it has a huge amount of profitability in this region. So this has been possible because of globalization, right? Makes sense, guys? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then we have the globalization of production, right? What do we mean by the globalization of production?
So if the company shifts their production to another country other than their home country.
Right, definitely. That's partially what globalization of production is. Definitely, but to be more precise, what we mean by the term globalization of production is the fact that you will source your different raw materials and components for your production from whichever country you think provides the best type of that particular component which you need for your production. Okay? For example, when you wake up, right, and you go somewhere, you take your car. So আমরা যখন বলি যে we are using a Japanese car, my car is made in Japan, right? Or for example, my car is made in Germany. Do you think each and every parts, each and every machinery, equipment which has been used to make your car has been made in the US or in Japan or in Germany?
No, sir. Some are
No,
outsourced.
sir.
No, sir.
Exactly, right? A lot of those factors of production are made outside of Japan. You are using a Toyota car, you're thinking that the entire car has been made in Japan, but that's not true. They're sourcing their equipments, they're sourcing their machineries from other Asian countries as well. They're bringing some of the parts from Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, because obviously the cost of production of those raw materials in those countries are what? Lower or higher than Japan?
Lower.
Definitely lower than
Lower.
Japan, right? So obviously they're bringing those products, those components from Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. That is what many of the Japanese car companies are doing. They're just assembling the car in Japan, but bringing a lot of the equipments from other countries. They're sourcing some of the equipments from their own country as well, but this will vary. Okay. For example, again, আমরা যদি একটা এয়ারক্রাফটের কথা চিন্তা করি, right? Boeing. How many of you have heard of the company Boeing?
I heard that, sir.
Yes, sir, I heard.
So Boeing is a company from which country? Any of you know?
UK, sir.
UK, sir.
Boeing. No, Boeing is American. Airbus is British.
Sorry,
So,
sir.
Sorry, sir.
no worries, it's fine. এখন Boeing এর assembling কোথায় হয়? Boeing airplanes, where do you think they're assembled? Boeing aircrafts are assembled in America as well. Okay, they have kept the assembling in America, but do you think all the different parts that they use for the aircraft also comes from the US?
No, sir.
No. Right? For example, main body, the main doors of the plane come from Japan. The wings come from Japan. The nose, landing, and other gears come from Singapore. The wing flaps that you see come from Italy. The engine is often made by Rolls-Royce, which means it's coming from the UK. So, এই যে বিভিন্ন জায়গা থেকে তাদের পার্টস গুলিকে সোর্স করার কারণটা কি? Why doesn't Boeing source all the different parts that they use for their aircrafts right from the US? আমেরিকা থেকে কেন সোর্স করে না সবকিছু?
So the cost would be higher if they.
The cost would be much
The
higher.
cost.
Exactly. The cost would be much higher, and maybe at the same time they don't find the right suppliers for all the equipments and the machineries and the parts that they need. Maybe they are located in different countries. Right? For example, Rolls-Royce, which makes aircraft engines, do you think it is an American company? Rolls-Royce কোন দেশের company?
UK.
It is a British company, right? So they focus on the manufacturing of aircraft engines. So এটা তো একটা আমেরিকান কোম্পানি না, সো তারা চাইলেও সেই জিনিসটা আমেরিকা থেকে হয়তো সোর্স করতে পারবে না, অথবা অন্য কোন আমেরিকান কোম্পানি থেকে হয়তো ইঞ্জিনটা তারা নিতে পারে, বাট মেবি দে থিংক that the quality of the engines made by Rolls-Royce is better, so they take it from Rolls-Royce. So that is what we mean by globalization of production. First জিনিস হচ্ছে যে cost. If I try to source everything from my own country, it will be very expensive. The second thing is, maybe my country does not produce all the different raw materials and equipments and the machineries that I need to assemble the product. Maybe I have to bring it from other countries as well. So I have to look for the balance between high quality and low price, and then source my inputs for the production of goods and services. Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? Does this make
Yes,
sense?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think why do you think our biggest export industry, first of all, before I say this, which industry do you think is the biggest export industry in Bangladesh?
Sure, RMG.
Garment.
RMG, right? Ready-made garments is the biggest export industry of Bangladesh. Around 84% of our exports from Bangladesh, export earnings in Bangladesh come from the garments industry. Bangladesh's total যে export earnings আছে সেটার মধ্যে 84% আসে গার্মেন্টস থেকে। So why do you think that so many Western retailers, both American, British, and European, such as Old Navy, such as Gap, H&M, Zara, Primark, American Eagle, Abercrombie, Next, the list goes on and on and on. Old Navy, so many of them source their products from Bangladesh. Why do you think they source their products from Bangladesh? Why do we have the third biggest garments industry in the world? Well, technically tied with Vietnam right now at second position, but some researchers say that we have fallen into the third position. Anyway, either we are the second biggest exporter or the third biggest exporter. This is right now a little confusing because different reports have different claims. কেউ কেউ বলে আমরা ভিয়েতনামের সাথে tied, কেউ কেউ বলে Vietnam has become the second biggest. Either way, that is not the point we are focusing on. What I'm saying is, why do you think such a huge number of very big, very well-reputed foreign clothing retailers buy their products from Bangladesh or source their products from Bangladesh?
Lower
Because
labor cost.
labor cost is
Cheap
lower.
labor cost. Sir, the lower labor cost.
Definitely, one of the reasons that they source their products from Bangladesh is the cheap labor cost and the cheap inputs as well. শুধু labor cheap হলে তো হবে না. The other industrial inputs that you need to make garments also have to be cheap both, right? এই দুইটা জিনিসই লাগবে হচ্ছে গিয়ে মানে compared to, for example, UK or USA or Germany or any developed countries, do we or do we not have a much lower cost of production in the garments industry?
Yes, sir, we have.
Yes.
So we got
Definitely, the cost of production in Bangladesh is cheaper, right? But at the same time, if you are thinking of purely the cost of production, the cost of production in some of the African countries must also be cheap because some of the African countries are way poorer than we are. Countries such as Sudan or Tanzania, Uganda, Liberia, Ethiopia. Many of the African countries are way poorer than we are right now. So why don't they buy the products from there? Why don't they buy the garments from those African countries instead of us or Vietnam? If the cheap labor is the only reason to go to a country and manufacture products there or to source products from another country, they could have gone to Tanzania or they could have gone to Uganda or they could have gone to Liberia or Angola. এইসব দেশে গিয়ে তাইলে কেন কিনে না? If cheap labor or the cheap cost is the
So I
only
think product quality is also
Product
Quality, sir.
Of course, right? The product quality is important, right? That is one factor which is influencing the globalization of production. And at the same time, do you think that many of the labor force in these African countries possesses the skills which will allow them to make high quality garments?
No, sir.
এই আফ্রিকান দেশগুলির সব লেবার ফোর্স মানে ক্যান ইউ জাস্ট ক্রিয়েট আ স্কিল লেবার ফোর্স ইন আ শর্ট পিরিয়ড অফ টাইম?
no sir.
No,
no,
sir.
sir. No, sir.
So what you have to understand here, why I have cited this particular example, is because of the fact that we, in general, a lot of focus only falls on the cost of production or the labor cost being cheap in Bangladesh, but that is not only the only reason. There are many very poor African countries, there are many other Asian countries who are very poor as well, but that does not mean that companies just go there. Tajikistaner GDP Bangladesher অর্ধেক বা তারও কম, but you don't see global clothing retailers such as Gap or Old Navy or American Eagle going to Tajikistan and making garments there. Have you seen any garments made in Tajikistan
No, sir.
or Turkmenistan or Angola, Tanzania, Uganda, Liberia, এইসব দেশে? Why don't you? Because of the fact that just cheap labor is not the only condition. You need to have the right skills of the people that are going to make the product. You need to have to maintain a minimum quality. আমি শুধু সস্তা গার্মেন্টস আমেরিকাতে নিয়ে গেলে বা কানাডাতে নিয়ে গেলে বা ইউকেতে নিয়ে গেলেই যে মানুষ কিনবে এরকম না. Is it like that? If the quality of your product is poor, then will the people buy the cheap product in those countries?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Obviously not, right? Do any of you know that Bangladesh always had আরো শত বছর আগের থেকেই, even when we were part of India, this region of the Indian subcontinent was always famous for its fabrics and clothing.
Yes.
যে আমাদের একটা ট্র্যাডিশনাল প্রেজেন্স ছিল ক্লোদিং ইন্ডাস্ট্রিতে অনেক আগে থেকেই, even when we were part of the British Empire. This particular region was always known for its fabrics and clothes.
Mostly in Jamdani.
Right, correct. সো তার মানে কি অনেক আগে থেকেই বাংলাদেশের ক্লোদিং ইন্ডাস্ট্রিতে একটা প্রেজেন্স ছিল, রাইট?
Yes, sir.
If a certain country does not have a presence in a certain industry, overnight কি সেই ইন্ডাস্ট্রিটাকে গ্রো করানো যায়?
No, sir.
Do that.
No, sir.
This happens gradually, unless of course you are China. China has been able to grow industries out of thin air because of their economic policies, which we are going to discuss in another class. But normally যেটা হয় যে সব ইন্ডাস্ট্রিতে একটা দেশের অনেক আগে থেকে একটা হিস্টোরিক্যাল প্রেজেন্স থাকে সেইগুলিকে প্রমোট করাটা আরো ইজিয়ার হয়। So since we always had an experience and expertise in the clothing and fabric industry, this has enabled us to attract a lot of foreign investment and a lot of foreign buyers. The entrepreneurs from the late 80s or the early 90s utilized this skill that the labor force had, right? তারা এই জিনিসটাকে ফার্দার প্রমোট করে। They saw the opportunity that yes, since we have a certain amount of expertise in this industry, it would be possible to invest further in this industry and make it grow in a global scale, right? They did the negotiations. A lot of credit goes to the entrepreneurs who have taken this industry forward by negotiating and by convincing the foreign buyers why they should be sourcing their products from us, right? So cheap labor is important, but at the same time the skill levels of the labor force, the quality of the product, those things are also important as well. যে কোনো একটা ফরেন ক্লোদিং রিটেইলার, একটা গ্লোবাল ব্র্যান্ড, সে জাস্ট র্যান্ডমলি জিম্বাবুয়েতে গিয়ে তার কাপড় বানানো শুরু করবে না, right? Do you think Zimbabwean clothing is very famous?
No, sir.
No, sir.
But does Zimbabwe have cheap labor? Or as a Zimbabwe inflation অনেক বেশি, forget Zimbabwe, let's think of another African country, Zambia for example. Cheap labor in Zambia, poor country in Africa. Do you think সেখানে গিয়ে এখন গ্যাপ কাপড় কিনবে ওদের ম্যানুফ্যাকচার?
No, sir.
Obviously not, right? It is a combination of the factors of production. It is not just the cheap labor. It has to also take into account the quality of the factors of production, right guys? So this is what we mean in summary by globalization of production. Clear so far, everyone? Makes
Yes,
sense?
sir.
Sir, in short, globalization means purchasing different products and tools from around the world. Right, sir?
Globalization, you see, in general, the word has a very, very big concept. Okay, এটাকে খুব ন্যারো ভাবে আসলে বলাটা ইজি না, রাইট? এইখানে আমরা globalization of markets and globalization of products এ ফোকাস করছি, but the concept of globalization is much bigger than that. All right, for example, if you look at the education system in which you are studying, what is the curriculum that we follow at NSU? Or what is the structure of the education system that we follow at NSU?
I think North American curriculum.
North American.
Right? It is a North American curriculum, and we follow a North American model as well. 3 credits per course, 127 credits to graduate. All this entire concept is American, right? So, এই যে জিনিসটা যে we have adopted things from the American education system, এটা কিভাবে হলো? This is not specifically about a product, right? This is an education system. So এটা কিসের আন্ডারে পড়ে? This you can categorize under knowledge generation or education, to be more specific. So এই যে আইডিয়াটা that the North American education system is superior and we should adopt the North American system, do you think এটা 50 বছর আগে বা 60 বছর আগে এই ধরনের চিন্তা ভাবনা আমাদের ছিল?
No, sir.
No. So this is what an exchange of ideas, right? That the American education system is considered to be the most superior in the world. So when this university started, they adopted this system. So এইখানে তো specifically আমরা কোনো product নিয়ে চিন্তা করছি না। We're talking about education. So this is a global exchange of ideas. So globalization as a concept, আমরা specifically INB তে we are talking about markets and production. But as a concept, the scope of globalization is very big. You can't just narrow it down and say যে just globally export import করে ম্যাকডোনাল্ডস এর প্রোডাক্ট আমরা আমেরিকাতেও পাচ্ছি, ইন্ডিয়াতেও পাচ্ছি। সো এটা শুধু এইটাই গ্লোবালাইজেশন, ইউ কান্ট ন্যারো ইট সো মাচ। ইউ আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড সামিন মোহাম্মদ what I said?
ইয়েস স্যার। আচ্ছা, যেটা বলা হয়েছিল গ্লোবালি এক্সপোর্ট ইম্পোর্ট, এটা তো গ্লোবালাইজেশন অফ প্রোডাকশনের পার্ট, রাইট স্যার?
কোনটা?
যেটা
It can be both globalization of production or markets. Okay, if you are importing raw materials, for example, if you are importing dye for your garments company, color বা fabric import করলে সেটা globalization of production এর part. If you are importing a finished product like a car, then it's part of globalization of markets. This will vary from product to product as well. Right? Makes sense?
ইয়েস স্যার।
So you can see examples of this all over. So there are multiple factors or forces which have allowed globalization to take place very fast, especially over the past 20 to 30 years. The pace of globalization has rapidly gone up, right? And some of these forces, by factors, by drivers, whatever you call it, there are some specific factors which have led to the growth in globalization very fast. এবং তার মধ্যে সবচেয়ে ইম্পর্টেন্ট যে ফ্যাক্টরটা, the main driving factor behind globalization is of course the rapid growth of technology, right? The growth of computing technology and internet technology has been the main driver of globalization. Why do you think the growth in mobile technology, computing technology, and internet technology has allowed globalization to take place very fast? What is the role that technology plays?
I'm sure establishing communication
Right.
between two countries.
It has connected the whole world.
Yes, absolutely correct.
It
You
made
are-
communication easier.
Definitely. Communication has been made easier, right? Much easier than it used to be. People can interact much easier now than they used to be able to before. Right? Imagine a world before the internet and social media. Was the world as connected as it used to be?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Sir.
Obviously not. Right? Even 10 years back, if the pandemic took place in 2010 instead of 2020, if the pandemic took place in 2010 instead of 2020, do you think we had the infrastructure or the technology to continue online classes and work from home?
No, sir.
No,
Right?
no, sir.
Absolutely not. Many of the multinational companies such as Grameenphone, such as HSBC, such as Levi's, এই সব জায়গাতে আমার ফ্রেন্ডরা কাজ করে, and many of them have worked from home just as long as we did. HSBC তে আমার ফ্রেন্ড এখনো সপ্তাহে 2 দিন যায়, Levi's এ আমার ফ্রেন্ড এখনো সপ্তাহে 2 দিন যায় অফিসে, রাইট? 10 বছর আগে যদি এই জিনিসটা হতো, do you think these multinational companies would have been able to operate like this?
No, sir.
Obviously not. যতই রিস্ক থাকুক সবার কিন্তু তখন মানে ফিজিক্যালি অফিসে গিয়ে কাজ করতে হতো, রাইট? সো টেকনোলজি হ্যাজ enabled or created so much more opportunities, especially the three things that I mentioned: mobile, computing, and internet technology has opened up a world of opportunities. Okay, we would have been stuck if this happened 10 years back. 2010 50 বছর আগের কথা বাদ দিলাম, 2010 এও yes there was Gmail, there was Google, but এই ফাংশনালিটি গুলি কিন্তু তখনও অত বেশি ইমপ্রুভ করে নাই যে we could have done online classes. So the more technology progresses, the more it allows globalization, the more you are able to use global products, right? Netflix, without the internet technology, would there be any streaming service like Netflix or Spotify or YouTube?
No, sir.
They
No,
are
sir.
earning billions of dollars. Do you think they're earning this money only from the American market?
No, sir.
Obviously not, right? The fact that global tastes are becoming more and more similar, right? Netflix shows it's not only American anymore, or it's not only Indian anymore. It has a global audience, and they're earning billions of dollars from that simply through internet technology. Again, if you look at other companies in this domain, Uber, without internet technology, would Uber exist?
No, sir.
No. And Uber is a global brand, right? It is the biggest ride sharing company in the world. Netflix is the biggest streaming service in the world. Facebook is earning billions of dollars by wasting your time, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Facebook and Instagram and all that crap. I'm sorry to, I mean, use that word. But yeah, it's a complete waste of time, right? All these social media sites, on a personal level, I believe they're earning billions of dollars by consuming all of your time. What do you get in return? If you are, for example, an Instagram influencer, or if you are uh, active in Facebook commerce, then of course you are earning from social media. But apart from that, have any of you consciously thought how much time you spend on these platforms every day? You can use an app, right? You can use certain apps which tracks the amount of time that you spend on the social media sites, right? And you will see that these companies are making money out of what? যত বেশি you will watch things on YouTube, যত বেশি you will watch things on Facebook, the more money they are going to make. Do you know this?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And what are you getting out of it? What is your output from going through hundreds of people's feeds on Facebook or Instagram every day? Is anything productive being added to your personal portfolio when you spend like 2-3 hours on social media every day? Unless of course you have a Facebook page where you sell products, or you're active in Facebook commerce, or you're an Instagram influencer. যারা এসব করে, I appreciate that, because you're making money out of Mark Zuckerberg. But otherwise, for the majority of the people, Mark Zuckerberg is making money out of us, right? Right
Yes,
or
sir.
wrong? He's using your time to create more money for himself. So, মানে I actively try to make sure যে আমি কোনোভাবেই দিনের একটা 24 hours এর মধ্যে 30 minutes এর বেশি আমি সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে যেন না থাকি. If you are able to do that, you will see that if you can control the amount of time you spend on Facebook or Insta, you'll see your productivity will rapidly increase. Try it out. Those of you who are serious about your academics and your career, if you দিনের মধ্যে যদি if you spend a maximum of half an hour going through Facebook or Insta feeds, you will see that you have so much more time to do productive things. So yeah, that is what globalization does. Not everything about globalization is always positive. That's what I'm trying to say here. I mean, yes, Facebook and Insta has their uses, but for the most part, they are this person, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, and his company's shareholders are making billions of dollars by wasting your time. You're not getting anything out of it. And the latest addition to that, of course, is the most cringe app that has ever been made. How many of you here use TikTok? How many of you here use TikTok? Have a TikTok account?
No, sir.
Of course, some of you must have a TikTok account.
স্যার অ্যাকাউন্ট আছে বাট ইউজ করি না
Yeah? কেন? My God, the amount of cringe I get from TikTok.
Highest level of cringeness, sir.
স্যার কিছু কিছু মিম পেজ আছে
Sir, I
যারা
want to
cringe
waste the
video
time
দেখে।
to open an account at least.
My God, sometimes honestly, I wish I lived in the 1980s. To be honest, just enough technology to make your life easier, but not so much technology that it makes it intrusive. Have any of you watched the show Mad Men? John Hamm. Have any of you watched that show? It's about an advertising agency in the 1980s. Mad Men again. So, you see what's happening with the emergence of technology and social media, especially social media. I mean, এই জিনিসটাকে categorize করাটা ভুল হবে যে technology is problematic, but the problematic part is social media. It's making people more and more fake, and it's wasting our time, and it's making real conversations and interactions less important. We are all glued to our screens, especially lockdown শুরু হয়েছে পরে তো আরো you spend so much time on your screen that you forget what real interactions feel like. Like it's very irritating at times, because on a personal level, I'm not a big fan of excessive technology in our lives. I still like to do certain things more traditionally, right? I don't like reading on a tab or on the phone. I still like the physical feel of a book. Whenever I'm reading, I want that feel of the paper, right? So
Sir, I get headache when I read from screen too much. So.
especially since the pandemic, I have a permanent headache, because এমনিতেই I don't like so much screen time normally, even without the lockdown or the pandemic, and this has rapidly increased. The amount of hours I have to spend in front of a screen has rapidly increased ever since the pandemic took place. এখন তো সবকিছু I have to check everything using Google Classroom or Canvas. এখন থেকে all the meetings are online, all my reading materials are online, all my research work is, I have to read things from the screen all the time. I have got this permanent headache. সারাক্ষণ আমার মাথা ব্যথা থাকে একটা, কম বেশি যাই হোক, but I have a headache. So I'm not used to this. মাঝে মধ্যে আমি যেটা করি, আমার রিসার্চের কাজের জন্য যে রিডিং যে পেপারগুলি আমার পড়তে হয় বা জার্নালগুলি পড়তে হয়, সেটা আমি NSU, we have to go. I don't know whether you guys know this or not. At times we have to go for some work to the campus. আমি গেলে ওই NSU থেকে আমরা জিনিসপত্র প্রিন্ট করে নিচ্ছি। I don't like reading things so much on the screen. Especially I have high powered glasses. আমার চশমার power -5, -6. So it's very difficult for me to read everything through the screen. I guess it's a generational thing as well. For example, I'm a late millennial, and most of you guys are Generation Zs. So Generation Z people are more and more comfortable with the screen. But with millennials or late millennials, I don't know, but আমার অনেক ফ্রেন্ডরা আবার they are very used to spending time on the screen. But personally, I think there should be a right balance. So I was very happy প্রথমে যখন শুনছিলাম যে NSU ক্যাম্পাসে যাবে or things like that, but এখন তো আবার I think I don't know what's happening. Back on the screen. So yeah. So as I was saying, for businesses, of course, technology is essential. Without the computing resources, without the internet, for example, for multinational companies with global operations, do you think they would have been able to manage their global factories and their global offices and overall their entire global operations without computing and internet technology? You are an American company making computers in China. How do you see the level of output? How do you see the level of inputs, where your raw materials are, where all your products are, how many units are getting delivered, how many workers are working in every factory? এই জিনিসগুলি মনিটর করে কিভাবে এখন? Do you think the headquarters sends all their employees to China and sees what's happening there?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Obviously not. Through technology, again, you are able to manage your global operations in real time. Through softwares, you're able to see what's happening around the world in your companies. So obviously technology has its obvious benefits, right? যেটা ছাড়া কোনোভাবেই globalization এই পেজটা রিচ করতো না। Even 10 years back, technology was slower, internet was slower. Many things have changed over the past 10 to 15 years very rapidly, and both personally and professionally, people are more and more dependent on technology, right? So that is the main driving factor. It has allowed companies to rapidly expand around the world. It has allowed them to maintain and manage their operations, offices and factories all around the world, because in real time they can monitor and oversee the overall operations of the company in different parts of the world. So that is one of the main driving factors. What is the biggest, or who is the richest person in the world right now?
Jeff Bezos.
Who?
Elon Musk.
No, Elon Musk মাঝখানে অল্প কয়েকদিন ছিল. It's not Musk anymore. It's
Jeff Bezos, sir.
So Jeff Bezos, sir.
yes, Jeff Bezos, right? And what is the name of his company?
Amazon.
Amazon Industries.
So, do you think without technology a company like Amazon would exist? Amazon এর কাজ কি? Those of you who are not very
Sir, online product sell করে.
right. It's a e-commerce company, right?
Yes, sir.
E-business.
E-Valley,
Yes, sir.
thankfully not like E-Valley, but a proper e-commerce company. So, without mobile computing and internet technology, would Amazon exist?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Amazon থাকতো ইন্টারনেট ছাড়া বা কম্পিউটিং ছাড়া বা মোবাইল টেকনোলজি ছাড়া?
No, sir, not possible.
No,
Right? So if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world right now, such as Amazon, such as Tesla, such as Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, they are all in which industry?
So technology industry.
They are all in the technology industry. So some of the biggest, most profitable companies in the world, they are in the tech industry, right? And they are helping other companies in other industries to rapidly increase their production and markets through the use of technology as well. Easily you can find American products in India, Indian products in America, Chinese products in Japan, Japanese products in Korea, because again these e-commerce companies have played a major role in improving distribution. Okay, আগে হয়তো পাওয়া যেত products একটা দেশে product আরেকটা দেশে, but it wouldn't be this easy to find it, would it? But now, because of the e-commerce companies, globalization has further increased. It is very easy for consumers from different countries to access products from around the world. You understand what I'm saying, guys?
Yes, sir.
Does this
Yes,
make
sir.
sense? So, the second reason is the liberalization of cross-border trade and resource movements. এটার মানে হচ্ছে একটা সময় ছিল 50 বছর আগে বা 70 বছর আগে, যখন পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন দেশ তাদের বর্ডারগুলিকে ক্লোজড রাখতো। The old concept was that import fewer products and export more. But nowadays, most of the governments of the countries realize that we need to open up our borders for foreign investment and foreign products. Otherwise, our country will not grow and develop. Right? For example, garments industry Bangladesh, সবকিছু কি বাংলাদেশে বানানো হয়? Do we make everything
No, sir.
here
No,
from
sir.
the garments industry? No. The fabrics come in many cases from China and other countries. The dye, the zipper, the button, the cotton, many of those industrial inputs come from other countries. But এখন গভর্নমেন্ট যদি বাংলাদেশের মনে করতো যে না আমরা অনেক বেশি ট্যাক্স বসায় রাখবো এই প্রোডাক্টগুলির উপরে, অথবা এই প্রোডাক্টগুলি আমরা বিদেশ থেকে আসতেই দিব না, সবকিছু শুধু ফাইনাল প্রোডাক্টটা না, সব গার্মেন্টস এর ইনপুটসও বাংলাদেশে বাড়ানো হবে. If the thinking of the government was like that, do you think the industry would have grown and we would be exporting such a massive volume of garments abroad?
No, sir.
যদি আমাদের ইম্পোর্ট বন্ধ করা থাকতো, যদি আমরা এই ইনপুটগুলিকে ইজিলি আনতে দিতাম না, obviously the industry would have not grown. So many countries have realized this and they have taken steps to make sure that certain types of products and services can easily be imported into their own country. You understand what I'm saying, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, we'll finish here today. Let Talan finish and I'll take your attendance and we'll be done for today.